2008, when Batman was using mass surveillance in a movie that was at least conscious of the moral implications of that technology while fully justifying it in response to 9/11 and the War on Terror and the Patriot Act, it was identified as techno-fascism. 2026, you have Peter Parker doing something very similar in a movie that doesn't grapple with it at all, but rather treats it as a throwaway joke in service of the government and with the police looking the other way. It's fair to ask, is the mass surveillance okay when it's smiling and not frowning? In my review, I really like what Tom Holland's doing performance-wise, but the writing of this Peter Parker feels a bit like Bruce Wayne or Tony Stark. The thing is, we got an entire Spider-Man movie that gave Peter Parker not just a weapon with drones and all that, but a mass surveillance tool in Edith. This movie was very carefully to not critique that too hard and to play a lot of it off as a joke. The thing is, at the end of that movie, despite all the horrible stuff we saw, Peter Parker was still wearing those glasses around his neck. They got taken away from him at the beginning of No Way Home. In an era where there's an attempt to normalize meta glasses and the like, I think the messaging of this movie was very curious. I think the messaging of this film was very similar in a way to The Dark Knight. Dark Knight, through Lucius, actually offers a stronger condemnation of this technology, but it says that Batman is the one person, right, who is moral and just enough to use this, only go after the terrorists, and then get rid of the technology when it's done. Peter keeping those glasses at the end of the film, it's seemingly just saying he needs to be mature enough, right, but he is the right person once he reaches that maturity. Technology can be bad in the wrong hands, but in the right hands, it's okay. Dark Knight is 100% reactionary to 9/11, and it 100% justifies the use of the technology in the end because it says there was no other way. The Dark Knight had better writing where they try to make it more challenging for the audience because they say civilians are going to die if this is not done. Brand New Day, Peter's on the phone with a New York City detective talking about protecting a government agency in damage control. Trying to find Scorpion because he's their only lead, and Peter says, I have every camera in the city running facial recognition. The detective says, that sounds super illegal, I'll pretend I didn't hear that, and Peter says, yeah, I guess that's for the best, but hey, when he shows his face, we'll be able to find him. Like that being super illegal and unethical, it's okay, right, because it's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's nothing like the big angry techno-fascist Batman, right? This AI surveillance, facial recognition bullshit being pushed into movies like this that are very popular, in my opinion, help to normalize stuff like Flock. Those cameras are not just being used for tracking cars and license plates, they can be used to track people as well. Implications here are horrifying, and there are many other concerns, for example, Ring cameras and how they can be tapped into by the police or the government. The idea they try to push is that this technology is okay and normal when the good guys have it. You think back to 9/11 and the Patriot Act and you ask yourself, what have the good guys been doing for the past 25 years? When you dig into things like the Patriot Act and the government's response to 9/11, you find people like Ghislaine Maxwell's sisters, Christine and Isabel. We know that Robert Maxwell was a spy, we know that Ghislaine was Ghislaine, but nobody ever talks about the other two sisters. Christine and Isabel co-founded one of the first search engines that ever existed in Magellan. The next thing that Christine did was found a company called Chiliad, quote, a software company involved in the advance of on-demand, massively scalable, intelligent mining of structured and unstructured data through the use of natural language search technologies. The FBI turned around and built their counterterrorism data warehouse around her tech. At the end of the day, the Maxwell family history is far more interesting than Jeffrey himself, and this is just a small example of how the United States government in the early 2000s told you you had to be afraid there was an enemy out there and they needed to abuse your privacy to keep you safe. We still prop these ideas up with our superheroes, whether they're cold and angry or happy, young, and cheerful.